In my view, based on reports and interviews, President Trump has proven he's unfit to hold the office of the presidency time again, but nowhere are his faults more glaring and more offensive, to me at least, than when it comes to his denigration of our service members, veterans, wounded warriors, the fallen. Quite frankly, I won't say get angry, quite frankly, it makes me very upset the way he gets in front of a camera and crows about how much he has done for veterans and then turns around and insults our service members and fallen heroes when the camera's off. Calls them suckers and losers.
And a slew of Trump aides who were actually there when Trump supposedly made the comments, though, have come out. They've denied that report, including people like John Bolton, who absolutely want him to lose and would have included such an anecdote in his book to sell more copies if he could have. And look, given their track record, we probably shouldn't believe any of them. But look deeper, and even liberal Jason Leopold at BuzzFeed cast doubt on that tale, given the documents that he obtained earlier showing that the U.S. military is actually the one that canceled the trip because of bad weather. Now, could they all be lying? Maybe. Frankly, it's not even really the most important part of the story. The most important part, in my view, is how we're all glossing over the obvious political and economic benefits that this story has for the very worst people in Washington. As I mentioned, the author of this story is The Atlantic's Jeffrey Goldberg. That matters a lot. Why? Well, Goldberg has long been a tool of the national security state, an aide pushing for war with Iran, war in Syria, and war in Iraq. Don't take my word for it. Take Glenn Greenwald's, who, as usual, has the receipts and lays out Goldberg's long history of agitating for war, making the case for the invasion of Iraq, and how Goldberg himself is most responsible for manufacturing the lie that Saddam Hussein was in league with al-Qaeda to perpetuate the 9/11 attacks and laid the groundwork for public support for the invasion. Why am I even making this about Goldberg? Well, he's the only publicly identifiable person in this story. Goldberg's sources were all anonymous, not because they fear for their lives, but because they fear for tweets. That's literally the reason that Goldberg gave in a recent CNN appearance.
Well, like you, when you're faced with the same situation, you always ask for people to go on the record.
Sure.
And then ultimately you have to make it when they don't want to go. And we've both experienced why people don't want to go. They don't want to be inundated with angry tweets and all the rest. And we push hard, and that's why you have to sort of do this reporting with even more belt and suspenders approach.
So we have a dubious story pushed by a notorious errand boy for the deep state and by cowardly members of the national security bureaucracy. Why? Why now? Two answers. Both of them have to do with perpetuating the war in Afghanistan. On the very same day that Goldberg dropped his story, hours earlier, the Trump administration appointed Will Ruger to be the next U.S. ambassador to Afghanistan, who happens to be the first nominee to that country, which has called for a total and complete withdrawal of U.S. forces. Interesting, right? Even more interesting, literally hours after the story dropped from The Atlantic, an advertisement was ready from a group called Vote Vets, which debuted on MSNBC's Morning Joe, describing Trump's so-called comments. Vote Vets claims they had no heads up about the story, and they worked throughout the night to produce the ad. To which I say, interesting timing. What was worse than all of that, though, was the behavior of the so-called journalists. Biden emerged from the basement for an emergency press conference where, I kid you not, the very first question was from a staff writer for The Atlantic, and where a journalist asked what that story tells Biden about Trump's soul. The best question was from CBS News' Ed O'Keefe, who actually asked Biden why he wasn't more angry about Trump's remarks. So again, let's trace the roots of this entire controversy. We have a highly dubious story, anonymously sourced in The Atlantic, dropped from a reporter with a long record of flacking for the war machine, which is then accepted hook, line, and sinker by the media, who feed it to the Biden campaign and associated apparatuses to manufacture a news cycle designed to get the president out of office. Millions of dollars will be fundraised off of it. Nobody of actual stature will actually question it. And more importantly than anything else, if Joe Biden wins the presidency, he owes these people a lot. After all, they went to all-out war with their own president to ensure he gets elected. Why? Not because they care about his character, but because they care about the policies that he will have to continue. They care about the fact that he will not pursue a withdrawal from Afghanistan and will empower the Obama-era neocons who were crested into office on the backs of a great anti-war movement and actually ended up starting 2 more to boot and getting us even more mired in a quagmire abroad. That's what this entire episode is really all about. It's a shot across the bow at Trump that even trying to get troops out of Afghanistan is beyond the pale for the deep state. And it's a warning to the incoming Biden administration. If you even try, you're next. So you might as well play ball. Be a good boy. I'll end with one of the most fearful observations, which was made by former U.S. Ambassador to Russia under President Obama, Russiagate fanatic, regular guest on MSNBC, Michael McFaul, who tweeted after the Atlantic story came out, quote, "Trump has lost the intelligence community. He has lost the State Department. He has lost the military. How can he continue to serve as our commander-in-chief?" Do you notice anyone missing in that equation about who the president is accountable to? You.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.